Have you ever experienced that profound, kind of unsettling shift in the atmosphere when the absolute most vital, protective presence in your life just suddenly vanishes? You know, the kind of absence that changes not just how you feel, but how you literally see the physical world around you? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to explore a remarkably human and deeply emotional text from ancient epic literature. We're zeroing in on a really specific, poignant moment in the Kamyaka woods. We're going to strip away the mythic battles for just a second to look at the raw, universal experience of grief and that agonizing void left behind by a hero. Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine a championship sports team suddenly losing their absolute star player literally overnight, but, with actual life or death stakes. The situation here is completely dire. The Pandava brothers, who are mighty warriors in their own right, are just reeling. Their brother Arjuna, the peerless archer of unbaffled prowess, has departed from their forest exile. He hasn't been defeated, he's just gone, away. But to his family, his departure feels like an insurmountable blow. We're going to look at exactly how a group of the world's most formidable fighters processes this sudden, gaping hole in their ranks, and how an environment that once felt like a sanctuary instantly transforms into a prison of memories. Section 1. The empty Kamyaka forests. So, our exploration kicks off with King Janamejaya, who asked the sage Vaisampayana a really practical question. How did these heroes even survive when they were deprived of the guy who was basically their ultimate anchor? Vaisampayana answers with this brilliant show-don't-tell metaphor. When Arjuna was with them, the Pandavas were this cohesive, unstoppable unit. They were like a beautiful, continuous wreath, or a bird in glorious flight. But without him, they have cheerless hearts. They resemble pearls unstrung from a wreath, just scattering everywhere without that binding thread. Even more devastating, he calls them birds shorn of their wings. They are completely grounded. Their former unity and their mobility have been totally severed by this one single absence. The landscape itself actually seems to drain of color. Vaisampayana notes that the forest now looked like the mythical Chaitra woods, abruptly deprived of Kuvera, the god of wealth. And what's fascinating is that the brothers try to keep up appearances. Endowed with all this great prowess, they still go out daily, slaying and offering wild animals as sacrifices to the holy men, the Brahmanas. But the text is crystal clear. These actions, these duties, bring them absolutely no cheer. They're just going through the motions in a state of perfect cheerlessness. Section 2. Draupadi's forlorn birth. Now, what's really interesting about this is how we start to examine this grief through different perspectives. It's like spokes on a wheel, right? All centering on Arjuna. We begin with Draupadi, the princess of Panchala. She's mourning her third lord, and her grief is uniquely intimate and just overwhelming. She actually quantifies his sheer physical presence with this massive number, 1,000. She says that Arjuna, with merely his 2 human hands, rivals the legendary mythical 1,000-armed Arjuna of old. She is elevating his physical capability straight to the realm of the divine. It really emphasizes just how colossal his protective presence felt to her. Draupadi's lament is just intensely vivid. She is haunted by these specific, sensory details. Without him, she misses the sheer, unstoppable prowess of an infuriated elephant. Without him, she longs for his unique complexion, described as the hue of a mass of blue clouds. Without him, she remembers his eyes, delicate and beautiful like the leaves of a lotus. And without him, the forest is terribly quiet. She misses the twang of his bow that sounded like the very roar of thunder. These aren't just, military attributes. They are deeply personal, poetic memories of the man she loves. And that brings us to a crushing realization. Draupadi confesses to King Yudhishthira, "Whenever I cast my eyes, this earth seems to be forlorn." She points out that the forest around them is actually full of blossoming trees and wonders, but it just doesn't matter. Without Arjuna, she cannot feel any happiness. The physical beauty of the world is completely overwritten by the internal void of his absence. Section 3. Bhima's Sky Without Sun. Let's move to and see how this builds, because hearing Draupadi actually delights the mighty Bhimasena, who steps in to share his own perspective. But Bhima's grief shifts the scale entirely to pure macro-level military intimidation. Bhima hyper-focuses on Arjuna's physique, honestly almost like an ancient Jimro revering a teammate. He describes his brother's arms as long, symmetrical, and stout, literally comparing them to a couple of iron maces. He lovingly recalls the physical scars of the warrior, arms marked by bowstrings, graced with weapons, encircled with golden bracelets, and terrifyingly resembling a couple of 5-headed snakes. For Bhima, Arjuna's physical form was the ultimate weapon and the ultimate shield. And because that shield is gone, Bhima makes this staggering statement: "Without that tiger among men, the sky itself seemeth to be without the sun." Think about the irony here for a second. Bhima, an absolute powerhouse himself, admits to a sudden, shocking vulnerability, reiterating that without him, Bhima says they now actually fear the sternly exerting ranks of the Celestials themselves. Relying on Arjuna, they used to regard all their foes as already vanquished, and the earth itself is already conquered. Now, without Falguna, which is another name for Arjuna, Bhima says he can find absolutely no peace. Everywhere he looks, all the different directions appear entirely empty. Section 4. The twins remember. Following Bhima, the younger twins Nakula and Sahadeva step forward. Their contribution to this chorus of grief is fascinating because they shift the narrative away from emotional metaphors and instead they build a historical catalog, a veritable greatest hits of Arjuna's legendary deeds. But before the history lesson, the text gives us a crucial detail about Nakula. He speaks with a voice choked with tears. It's a raw, unvarnished detail showing the true vulnerability of these mighty warriors and how physically overwhelming these memories are for them. So the crucial point is exactly who they are missing, and the twins remind everyone. They run through this epic timeline, single-handedly vanquishing hundreds of mighty Gandharva chiefs in the north, procuring incredibly swift, wind-speed Tidri and Kalmasha horses for a great sacrifice, defeating assembled Yadava armies to ravish Subhadra, and even invading enemy territory as youths just to secure their preceptor Drona's tuition fee. They're layering all these massive past glories right up against their current, completely helpless feeling. Section 5. The void left behind. So we've heard the emotional, the physical, and the historical toll of Arjuna's absence. Now we reach the breaking point, driven by a simple, devastating reality of their campsite. Sahadeva delivers this final, shattering observation. Beholding that Jishnu's bed of grass empty in our asylum, my heart refuses consolation. Just think about the power of that image. It's not an empty throne, not a dropped weapon, but an empty bed of grass in their forest shelter. It is this stark, quiet visual detail of domestic absence that finally completely shatters Sahadeva's resolve. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate conclusion they are forced to reach. The process is clear. Step 1. They fully acknowledge that the void left by Arjuna is insurmountable. No amount of daily ritual is going to fix it. Step 2. They accept that the once beautiful Kamyaka woods are no longer delightful. The environment itself has basically been poisoned by his absence. And therefore, Step 3. Sahadeva declares that migrating from this forest entirely is what he would prefer. The physical geography of their exile has to change because the emotional geography has become utterly unbearable. They just have to leave. We'll leave you with this thought. The blossoming trees were still there. The wildlife was still there. But to the Pandavas, the Kamyaka forest had turned to ash. It forces us to ask, can a beautiful world truly exist in our eyes without the heroes, the protectors, and the loved ones who give that world its meaning and security? It's a really profound question about how the people we love literally color the environments we inhabit. Think on that, and we'll see you in the next explainer.